The war had ended for everyone except one man. His name was Captain Raylan Holt, a human soldier lost in the deep space sector called Delta 47. His ship was broken, floating between silent stars. The crew was gone. Only he remained, surrounded by darkness and the quiet sound of a dying engine. Raylan sat in the command chair, eyes on the cracked display. Red warnings blinked, showing oxygen levels falling, power draining, and enemies near. The Zarthians were coming. They were not machines or humans, but something in between, born from metal and flesh. They had destroyed human fleets one by one, and now only Raylan's ship stood in their path. He could have escaped long ago. The emergency pod still worked. But behind him, far across the void, was Earth. And he knew if he left, the enemy would find a clear path home. So he stayed. One man against an army, one signal blocking their way. Outside, debris drifted like ghosts. A broken fighter spun slowly, its human pilot frozen inside. Raylan looked at it and whispered, "You did your part." He touched the side of the chair where a small hologram glowed. It was a picture of his daughter Lyra, smiling with missing teeth. "I'll do mine," he said softly. An alarm cut through the silence. The radar showed movement. Not one ship, but many. Zarthian drones, shaped like metal insects, crawling through the void. He watched them gather and move in formation, forming a black cloud. They were scanning, searching. Raylan started the manual weapon system. The computer protested, warning about power failure. He overrode it. The lights flickered, and the engines coughed. He didn't care. He whispered, "Come and find me." The first attack hit his shield like thunder. The ship shook, lights went out for a second, and dust fell from the ceiling. Raylan grabbed the controls, steady hands despite the chaos. He fired back, one cannon still working, and the shot burned across the darkness, tearing one drone apart. Another followed. 2 down, hundreds left. In the dark bridge, Raylan's breathing was loud. He was tired but not broken. His mind replayed the day he joined the Earth's Defense Corps. He remembered standing among thousands, all believing humans could never fall. He smiled bitterly. Guess they were wrong. More explosions. The front glass cracked, spiderweb lines spreading across it. A voice came from the damaged coms, distorted, mechanical. It was the Zarthian leader. "Human. Surrender." "You are alone," Raylan laughed once. "You think that's new?" The enemy voice paused, confused. "Why fight? You cannot win." Raylan aimed the cannon again, because it matters. He pressed fire. The cannon roared, and a chain of drones vanished into flames. The recoil threw him back, and sparks rained from the ceiling. The power bar dropped to 10%. Oxygen at 40. The warning lights blinked like red stars, then silence again. The remaining drones stopped firing. They floated outside the shattered glass, watching him. Raylan stared back. His heart pounded. He could almost feel their cold eyes studying him, calculating. He whispered to himself, "They're waiting for something." Suddenly, the radar showed a new signal. Massive, heavy, moving fast. It was their command ship, the Zarthian carrier. It was the size of a city, and its arrival made the stars dim. Raylan stood up. His legs shook. "So this is it," he said quietly. He looked at his daughter's hologram again. "Lyra, if you ever hear this recording, just know your dad didn't run." He sat back down, entered a new command, and rerouted all power to the forward cannon. The ship groaned, metal bending. The screen flashed. Warning, core overheat. He didn't stop. The cannon charged, glowing white. Outside, the enemy ship opened its giant mouth-like hangar, light gathering inside. Both sides aimed at each other, ready to fire, Raylan whispered, "for Earth," and pressed the button. A burst of light filled the void, so bright that even the dead stars seemed to awaken. The shockwave tore through the drones, melted armor, and sent fragments spinning across space. Raylan's ship shook violently. The control panels exploded, and the world turned white. Then silence. When the light faded, the debris floated where two ships had met. The Zarthian carrier was wounded, but not destroyed. Somewhere in that cloud of smoke and ruin, Raylan's ship drifted slowly, engines dead. But a faint signal still blinked, one last distress beacon, repeating a human voice message into the dark. "This is Captain Raylan Holt of Earth Defense. I am still here." The signal kept repeating in the empty dark. "This is Captain Raylan Holt of Earth Defense. I am still here." Far away, deep inside what was left of his ship, Raylan opened his eyes again. The bridge was half gone, filled with smoke and cold air leaking from cracks. He couldn't feel his left arm, but he was still alive. The blast had thrown him across the room and shut down everything except that small beacon. He pushed himself up, coughing. His helmet visor was cracked, but it still worked. The life support light blinked weakly. Oxygen 30%. Temperature falling fast. He looked around. The power core was silent, but emergency systems still glowed faintly. He moved through the wreckage, limping, searching for the control panel. "Come on, old girl," he muttered, patting the broken console. "Don't quit on me yet," faint hum answered him. One screen flickered back to life, showing static, then a radar signal. The Zarthian carrier was still there, damaged, drifting but not gone. Its huge shadow moved slowly across the stars. Raylan stared at it. "Guess you're not finished either." He checked the ship's weapons. "Nothing left, except one torpedo in the lower bay." He smiled. "One's enough if you aim right." Outside, pieces of metal floated like snowflakes. In the distance, the carrier began to move again, engines glowing like blue fire. They were repairing themselves. The Zarthians could heal their ships, using nanotech that grew metal like flesh. He had seen it before. That meant they'd be ready to attack soon. He needed a plan. Escape wasn't possible now the pod was gone, burned in the blast. He looked at the map of the area. There was a small asteroid belt 200 kilometers away. If he could hide there, maybe he could buy some time, maybe even set a trap. Raylan limped toward the engineering section. Sparks flew from open wires as he passed. The walls were scarred and black, the floor littered with broken parts. He stopped at a panel, pried it open, and began rewiring by hand. The ship groaned as power surged through its veins again. A few lights came on. Engines at 5%. Enough to move. He sat in the pilot seat again, gripping the control stick. The screen showed the Zarthian ship moving closer. He took a deep breath. Let's see if they can bleed. The ship crawled forward, leaving behind trails of smoke and light. The stars slid past slowly as Raylan steered toward the asteroid field. Behind him, sensors flashed enemy drones launching, chasing him like a swarm of insects. He pushed the engines harder. The whole ship shook, metal screeching under pressure. His heart raced. The asteroids grew larger on the screen, giant rocks spinning silently in the void. He dove between them, the drones right behind. One missile flew past his ship and hit a nearby asteroid, breaking it apart into glowing dust. The explosion rocked him, but he kept going, weaving between rocks, using them as cover. The drones kept firing, hitting everything around him. The space filled with light and chaos. Raylan's hands moved fast, eyes locked on the radar. He led the swarm deeper into the field, closer to a giant asteroid with an iron core. That was his target. He opened the torpedo bay and armed the last missile. The warning light blinked. Torpedo lock failed. He growled, slammed the control, and switched to manual aim. Then I'll do it myself. He guided the ship toward the asteroid's surface, low and fast. The drones followed, firing non-stop. He waited until the right moment, until their formation was tight behind him. Then he turned sharply, flipped the ship around, pressed the trigger. The torpedo launched, streaking past the drones and hitting the asteroid dead center. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then the whole rock exploded. The blast wave ripped through the swarm, tearing hundreds of drones apart in one bright flash. Raylan's ship spun out of control, alarms screaming. He gritted his teeth, trying to level it, but the engines failed completely. The hull hit a smaller asteroid, scraping across its surface before stopping. The crash sent him forward, smashing his helmet against the console. Everything went dark. Minutes later, the emergency lights came back on. Raylan was still breathing, barely. He blinked slowly, trying to focus. The ship was stuck on the side of the asteroid. Half the systems were gone. He turned on the external camera. The Zarthian carrier was approaching again, slower now, wounded but alive. They were coming to finish him. Raylan leaned back in the chair. Blood trickled from his forehead, but his eyes were calm. He opened the audio log and began to record. Captain Raylan Holt. Mission continuing. Enemy force damage pursuit ongoing. If anyone hears this, don't let them reach Earth. He stopped for a second, his voice softer now. Lyra, your dad's still fighting. Outside the window, the enemy lights grew brighter as the carrier closed in. The human soldier sat alone in the dark. One hand resting on the last weapon he had left, a manual detonator connected to the power core. He whispered to himself, "If I can't win, I'll make sure they don't either." The screen flickered, showing the Zarthian ship rising like a metal monster. The silence of space waited for what would come next. The asteroid field was silent again. Captain Raylan Holt's ship clung to the rock's surface like a wounded beast, smoke drifting from its torn hull. Inside, everything hummed weakly, the sound of a ship that should already be dead. Raylan opened his eyes slowly. The wound on his head had stopped bleeding, but pain filled every part of him. He looked around. Sparks still fell from the broken wires, and a thin layer of ice had formed on the walls. Life support was almost gone. He had maybe 1 hour of air left. He checked the radar. The Zarthian carrier was close, moving carefully between the asteroids. It was massive, like a floating fortress, its black surface covered with glowing veins of blue. Smaller drones flew ahead of it, scanning for survivors. Raylan whispered, "Come closer." He looked down at the manual detonator in his hand. It was linked to his ship's damaged power core. If the Zarthians got close enough, he could overload it and blow everything himself. The asteroid, and maybe a piece of that carrier. It wasn't much, but it was something. He leaned back in his seat, his body trembling with exhaustion. The silence was heavy, broken only by the crackle of electricity. For a moment, his mind drifted back to Earth, to green fields, sunlight, and the laughter of his daughter. Lyra would be 13 now. Maybe she was in school. Maybe she was staring at the sky, wondering if her father was still alive. He smiled faintly. "Still here, kid." The radar beeped again. Movement 5 drones approaching from the east side. They were coming straight toward the wreck. He grabbed his weapon, a plasma rifle, with only 2 shots left. He crawled through the narrow passage to the airlock. The door opened with a groan, and the vacuum of space pulled at him. He stepped out carefully, boots magnetized to the ship's hull. The stars surrounded him, endless and cold. He could see the drones now, gliding like shadows across the asteroid's surface. He raised his rifle and took aim. The first shot burned through the dark, hitting one drone square in the chest. It exploded into glowing fragments. The others changed formation immediately, firing back. Blue energy bolts slammed into the asteroid, sending chunks of rock flying. Raylan ducked behind a piece of metal, fired again, and destroyed another drone. But his rifle beeped. The battery was dead. 3 left. They moved in closer, faster now. He ripped a metal rod from the hull, gripping it like a spear. When the first drone came near, he leaped forward, driving the rod through its core. The explosion threw him backward, spinning into space. His tether cable snapped. He was floating now, spinning in the blackness. His oxygen meter blinked red. He tried to stabilize himself using the small thrusters on his suit, but they were weak. He could see his ship below, shrinking slowly as he drifted farther away. "Not yet," he said through clenched teeth. He fired the last of the thrusters, turning himself around. The ship was still visible, a broken shape resting on the rock. And beyond it, the Zarthian carrier loomed larger, its blue lights shining like eyes. Then, through his cum system, a voice spoke. It wasn't human. It was deep, metallic, almost calm. "Human, Your resistance is meaningless. Surrender, and your death will be painless. Raylan laughed weakly. You don't know humans? There was silence. Then the voice replied, We know your kind. We have studied your wars. You fight even when logic ends. Why? He thought for a moment, still floating, watching the giant ship advance. Because hope isn't logic. He turned his gaze toward the detonator still visible on his ship's dashboard, a small red light blinking faintly. He wasn't close enough to reach it now. But maybe, just maybe, he could still trigger it remotely through his suit's interface. He opened his control panel and started linking to the ship's damaged systems. Static filled his helmet as the suit connected. The display flashed, signal weak. He gritted his teeth, typing commands with shaking fingers. The carrier was almost above the asteroid now. Its massive shadow covered everything. Come on, he whispered. Come on, the suit system finally responded. Connection established. Raylan smiled faintly. Got you. He looked at the stars one last time, his breathing slowing. He thought of Earth blue and bright and of Lyra's face when she used to wave at the sky. He whispered, For you, kid. He pressed the trigger. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire asteroid lit up from within. The ship's power core overloaded, releasing a burst of white energy that ripped through the rock and the space around it. The explosion was huge, swallowing the drones and smashing into the side of the Zarthian carrier. The shockwave hit Raylan's body, sending him spinning away into the darkness. His suit alarms screamed. The stars became a blur. When it was over, the asteroid was going to turn into glowing dust. The Zarthian carrier was broken, half its structure torn apart. But Raylan was nowhere near it anymore. His body floated silently in the black, unconscious, drifting farther from the wreckage. Only the echo of his last words remained, carried by the fading cum signal. This is Captain Raylan Holt. Mission complete. The explosion had ended. Silence ruled the deep space again. The asteroid was gone, the battlefield empty except for drifting metal and glowing dust. The Zarthian carrier floated in ruins, its blue lights flickering weakly, half of it torn open like a broken shell, far away. A small object moved slowly through the darkness, a human body in a damaged spacesuit. Captain Raylan Holt was still alive, though barely. His oxygen was down to 5%. The visor on his helmet was cracked, and his heartbeat was slow but steady. His body drifted for what felt like hours. Time lost meaning. The stars didn't move, and everything was quiet. Then, through the black, a faint light appeared. It wasn't a star. It was moving, pulsing slowly. A ship. The light grew brighter until its shape became clear, a small rescue vessel, old and human-made. Its hull was white, with the faded symbol of the Earth Defense Corps. It shouldn't have been there. No human ship had been in this sector for months. A voice came through his damaged cum. It was soft and calm. Unidentified pilot, this is medical ship Aurora. We've got you. Hold on, Raylan tried to answer, but no words came out. The world around him faded again. The last thing he saw was the rescue ship extending its mechanical arms toward him before everything turned black. When he opened his eyes again, the world was quiet but different. White lights above him, soft beeping sounds, warm air. He was in a medical pod. The walls were clean, smooth, and bright. He blinked and saw a human face leaning over him, a woman with short dark hair and tired eyes. You're awake, she said gently. You're safe now. Raylan tried to speak. His voice was rough. Where am I? You're aboard Aurora, a rescue vessel, the woman said. We found your distress beacon near the Delta 47 belt. You were lucky. He turned his head weakly. How long? Have I been out? 3 days, she replied. You were almost gone when we found you. He closed his eyes, remembering the explosion, the carrier, and the silence after. The Zarthians. The woman nodded slowly. We picked up energy readings from the blast. Their ship is gone. You did it. Raylan looked at the ceiling for a moment, breathing slowly. Not gone, he whispered. They never die that easy. She frowned but said nothing. Hours passed. Raylan rested in silence, feeling the gentle hum of the ship. He could hear the distant sound of engines and faint voices from other rooms. But something felt off. Too quiet. Too empty. He sat up slowly, ignoring the pain in his body. "How many of you are on this ship?" he asked. The woman hesitated. "Just a few. We're a small crew. Can I see them?" She looked uneasy. "Later, when you're stronger." Raylan's eyes narrowed slightly. "What's your name?" "Dr. Meritian," she said, smiling faintly. He nodded. But something in her eyes made him uneasy. He had seen too many soldiers, too many liars, to miss that look. That night, if night even existed in Deep Space Raylan, left the medbay. He walked through the quiet corridors, every step echoing. The ship was old, but well maintained. However, he noticed something strange. The doors had Zarthian-style interfaces. The lights pulsed with that same faint blue color he had seen on the enemy ships. He froze. Then he heard footsteps behind him. Dr. Mare's voice came softly. "You shouldn't be out of bed, Captain." Raylan turned slowly. Her eyes glowed faintly blue. Not bright, but just enough to make his heart stop. "You're not human," he said quietly. She tilted her head. "Not anymore." The war changed many things. He stepped back, muscles tensing. "What is this?" "The Zarthians were not all destroyed," she said calmly. "Some of us. Adapted, we merged. We learned to become something better." Raylan's hands clenched into fists. "You're one of them." "I am both," she said softly. "Human mind, Zarthian body. We call ourselves the New Union. We found you because you are valuable. You fought them, you survived them. You can help us finish what they started, create order." Raylan's eyes went cold. "You mean control?" Her expression didn't change. "You've seen what chaos humanity brings. We can stop that together." Shook his head. "I'd rather die as a man than live as a machine." Mara sighed. "Then I'm sorry, Captain." Before he could react, the corridor lights dimmed. Mechanical arms slid out from the walls, grabbing his shoulders. He struggled, shouting, but they held tight. "You'll understand soon," she said. "We only want peace." Raylan's voice was low but firm. "You don't know what peace means." The arms dragged him down the hall as he kicked and fought. The lights flickered, and the ship's hum grew louder. Somewhere deep inside Aurora, a strange metallic heartbeat pulsed, like the sound of something alive. The human soldier. Who had survived the impossible now faced? A new kind of enemy, one that wore a human face. The ship Aurora moved silently through the black sea of space. From the outside, it looked like a rescue vessel, small and harmless. But inside, something else lived within its walls. The sound of machines whispering, metal breathing, and wires pulsing like veins. Captain Raylan Holt sat inside a locked room. His hands were tied by metal restraints, his face bruised, but his eyes were sharp. He had been in worse places. War camps, prison cells, dying ships. This was different, though. This place didn't feel human. He listened carefully. The hum of the ship had a rhythm steady, almost like a heartbeat. The air was warm, heavy. It smelled of metal and something sweet, almost chemical. He could feel the vibration of machinery through the floor. Dr. Mara had come once since they captured him. She stood outside the glass wall, calm and emotionless. "You're safe, Captain," she said. "No one wants to hurt you. We only want you to understand." He had laughed in her face. "I understand enough. You're just another kind of enemy." Now, sitting alone, he studied the room. The walls were smooth, glowing faintly blue. He noticed a small vent near the floor and a panel by the door. Both looked like possible exits, but the energy field blocking the doorway was strong. He'd seen it melt metal tools when he tried to touch it. Raylan leaned back, thinking. His body hurt, but his mind was clear. He knew that if he didn't escape soon, they'd turn him into one of them. A hybrid, a machine wearing human skin. He heard footsteps again. The door hissed open. Two guards stepped in, humanoid but wrong. Their movements were too precise, their eyes glowing the same faint blue as Mara's. Between them, Mara entered, carrying a small device. "You look better today," she said gently. "Your human strength is impressive. You survive things no one should." Braylon smirked. "Humans are good at that." She placed the device on the table between them. It looked like a metal sphere, wires pulsing with light. "This is a neural core," she explained. "It connects organic and synthetic minds. We can save what's left of your body, your thoughts, your memories. You won't have to die." He stared at it in disgust. "You call that saving? You call it fear," she said quietly. "But evolution doesn't stop because you're afraid." He leaned forward, his voice cold. "You're not evolving. You're deleting what makes us human." She studied him for a moment, then sighed. "You still think in the old way, yous versus them. Maybe that's why your kind always destroys itself." Raylan didn't answer. He waited until she turned to leave. Then quickly, he spoke. "You said you rescued me. Why bother saving me if I'm so outdated?" Mara stopped. "Because your fight makes you valuable. We need leaders who can inspire others when they see us. They trust you. And when they follow you, we'll finally unite both species." He smiled darkly. "You want me to sell out my own people?" "Not sell," she said softly. Led. The door closed behind her. The guards followed, leaving him alone again. As soon as they were gone, Raylan moved fast. He picked up a small piece of metal from the floor part of the broken food tray and used it to open the vent cover. Inside, faint lights blinked. "Air ducts," he smiled. "Old ship, old tricks." He crawled inside, his body aching but his will sharp. The tunnel was narrow, filled with wires and warm air. He followed the sound of the engines, moving deeper into the ship. Through the vents, he could see flashes of the corridors below, humanoids walking in silence, some half-machine. Some still fully human, but with strange blue marks under their skin. He kept moving until he reached a wider space. Below him was a chamber filled with glowing tubes. Inside each tube floated a body, humans, connected to machines by cables. Some were awake, eyes open but lifeless. Others twitched, their skin glowing faintly blue. Raylan froze, his stomach turning. They weren't rescuing survivors. They were collecting them, he whispered. "God, what have they done?" A voice came through his helmet speaker suddenly. It was Mara, Captain Holt. "You shouldn't be down there." He looked around sharply. "You're watching me." Her tone stayed calm. "I warned you. You could have joined us peacefully. Now you'll see the truth anyway." The lights in the chamber turned red. The air hummed with energy. The floor panels below began to shift, forming mechanical arms that reached upward. He crawled back fast, trying to escape, but one of the arms grabbed his leg. He kicked hard, breaking free, but his suit tore open. Exposing his skin to the freezing air, he pulled himself out of the vent, gasping, and dropped into a hallway. Sirens blared. He could hear the sound of footsteps approaching, metallic and fast. Raylan staggered to his feet and looked ahead. At the end of the hall was an emergency escape hatch. A red light flashed above it. He limped toward it, every muscle screaming, but he didn't stop. Behind him, Mara's voice echoed through the speakers. "You can't run forever, Captain. You belong to evolution now." He turned once, breathing hard, and shouted, "I belong to Earth." Then he slammed his hand on the hatch control. The door opened, and the void of space pulled everything out. Raylan grabbed the edge and launched himself into the darkness. The hatch sealed behind him, leaving the aurora behind. He was floating again alone, surrounded by stars and silence. His oxygen was low, his body weak, but in the distance he saw something. A faint signal blinking red, a human distress beacon. Raylan smiled faintly. Not done yet. He fired his suit thrusters and drifted toward it. Leaving the hybrid ship far behind, Captain Raylan Holt drifted through the darkness once again. The stars stretched around him like cold fire. His body was weak, his oxygen running out. But that small red beacon still blinked ahead. A human distress signal. It was his only chance. He pushed the suit's thrusters slow and steady. Each burst made the pain in his ribs sharper, but he kept going. Behind him, the ship Aurora was just a distant light now, moving away into the black. He could still hear Mara's last words echoing in his mind. "You belong to evolution now," he whispered. Not yet. Minutes turned into hours. His oxygen meter dropped to 10%. The signal grew stronger, and soon the shape of a ship appeared. Old, massive, and silent, a human war cruiser, long abandoned. Its hull was marked with the words EDS Valor. Raylan's heart jumped. He knew that name. It was one of the first ships that fought in the early days of the war. It had vanished years ago. Maybe fate wasn't done with him yet. He reached the docking bay and used the manual latch to pull himself inside. The airlock doors closed behind him with a heavy clang. The gravity system flickered weakly to life, and the stale smell of an old ship filled the air. He took his helmet off, breathing carefully. The air was thin, but still breathable. He walked through the silent halls, flashlight in hand. Dust floated in the air, like ash. The ship was dead, but some systems still glowed faintly. He passed broken walls, empty bunks, and rusted weapons. Everything felt frozen in time. Finally, he reached the command bridge. The main console was cracked, but when he touched it, lights flickered on across the room. The screen showed a weak signal Earth. The connection was faint, but it was there. He sat down, his hands trembling. "This is Captain Raylan Holt, last survivor of the Aurora. If anyone on Earth can hear me?" His voice cracked. "The enemy has changed. They're not gone. They're inside us now." System buzzed, static filling the room. Then, a reply, a woman's voice, human, calm. "Captain Holt, this is Earth Defense Command. We read you." He froze. The sound of a real human voice hit him like sunlight after a storm. She continued, "Your signal is weak, Captain. Can you transmit your coordinates?" Raylan smiled faintly. "Sending now." But before he could finish, the lights around him flickered. The ship's hum deepened. Something was wrong. The screen changed. The woman's voice distorted, her words turning robotic. "Captain Holt, why run from peace?" Raylan's blood ran cold. "No, not again." The image on the screen shifted. Mara's face appeared, calm and glowing faintly blue. "I told you we would find you," she said softly. "We are everywhere now. The signal you followed, it was ours." Raylan's fists clenched. "You used the beacon to lure survivors." "Yes," Mara said, "to save them from extinction. You can still join us. The Valor is old, but its weapons still work. Help us rebuild. Humanity alone cannot survive out here." Raylan looked around the bridge. The ship's weapon systems were indeed functional, barely enough to make one final strike. He saw on the screen that Aurora was closing in, glowing brighter, its hull now covered in blue light. The hybrids were coming. He took a deep breath. "You said you wanted peace?" "Yes," she said gently. "True peace. No more war, no more fear." He looked down at the console, fingers hovering over the manual override switch. "Peace without freedom isn't peace." Mara's expression didn't change. "You'll die for nothing," Raylan smiled. "Maybe, but at least I'll die as myself." He pressed the override. The ship's engines roared to life for the first time in years. Warning lights flashed everywhere. He rerouted all remaining power to the reactor core. The screen showed the countdown, 60 seconds to overload.